More on infrastructure, the multi-trillion-dollar reconciliation bill, and yes, the fight over the debt limit. I want to bring in Republican Senator Mike Braun. He voted against the bipartisan infrastructure deal that passed the Senate. Good morning to you. Help us understand where you think things really are, and is there any deal to be had from your vantage point?
So I've been here a little less than 3 years, and when you say help us understand, I want to give you a little context. This has occurred over a long period of time, and I call Democrats political entrepreneurs, and I think it's on full display, maybe without the benefit of even having a finance 101 or a macroeconomics class. But I want to be clear, this has evolved over a long period of time, and I call that the unholy alliance. Democrats roll over to Republicans when we want everything for defense. I think it's the most important thing we do, but I don't hold it sacrosanct. We do the same thing for domestic spending, and that's compressed into now only 1/3 of our budget. So I get here, 18 trillion in debt. Now we're 28, and most of that has been an equal opportunity endeavor. So I'm interested in reform beyond the kind of parlor games we're playing here. The American public is, I think, sick and tired of it. And yes, they got way ahead of their skis on this one. When you try to dump the $2 trillion we did recently with the rescue plan for COVID, 10% of it COVID related, and now you're going for broke with another $4 trillion, that is juggling in 1 year a time and a half what we generally spend and borrow 23% of every year. To give your viewers just a context, that's how poorly run the federal government is, and I'll close with this out of the gate. There are hardly any people here that have ever run anything, not even a lemonade stand, and it's the biggest business in the world, and what you're seeing is representative of how this has evolved over 2 or 3 decades to get to where we are.
Senator, do you anticipate the Democrats are going to come together? I mean, I imagine you do support the smaller infrastructure package, yes? Or completely not? No, I understand that, but that's in the context of, I believe, well, you tell me, was that in the context of both of them together, or is that really in the context of you don't even like the smaller one?
That's the thing about them. I think Pelosi runs a show, and she said they're definitely linked at the hip. But when you're juggling so many things at such high altitude, that has now been decoupled. So she's into a political fix that if they don't get the infrastructure bill, the 1.2 trillion, right, which I like some of the policy in there, or voted against it because it was done on a shaky foundation of pay-fors and no process. Only a handful of us vote against stuff we like because of that. That's another thing that starts occurring. She'll get something done, and nothing will come to the floor until she's guaranteed to get the votes, because there's enough egg on their face in total with kind of the haphazard way this thing is transpired over the last 2-3 weeks.
Senator, I'm going to use one of Andrew's questions and say, help us understand, because what I want you to help us understand is how Joe Manchin got in this position. And I know Senator Sinema is there too, but mostly you hear about, I've even seen, just joking, Big Joe and Little Joe, and they're talking about Big Joe being Joe Manchin. So there's 50 senators, Democratic senators in the Senate. So that really kind of means that 49 senators like Mark Warner is in there, and John Tester. So these people that, that seem sort of reasonable at times, they're there, but they're all on board. Now, Biden got nominated because he got nominated because he wasn't Bernie Sanders, right? And they lost seats in the House. David Perdue lost in Georgia because he won the election, but there had to be a runoff because he needed over 50. So they barely got a majority, and now everyone signed on to the Bernie Sanders bill, basically. Why? What's wrong with the other 49? Why is Joe Manchin, and he said it last night, he said, look, elect more liberals if you want to get this done, but I'm not one of them.
That's because, in general, Biden had to, I think, roll over to the progressive side of the party. I think they do call the shots in general, and we're now in this pickle. There's cinema in Manchin, they generally come along. You've heard Joe say 1.5 trillion.
Yeah, you will.
That'll be sold as a big sacrifice to folks like Bernie and AOC, but they'll get something done. And that's how few are left within the Democratic Party, that I think Joe's in a very conservative state. Sinema's in one that's probably purple. And folks like Warner and John Tester, who I know well, he's a farmer, they've been here long enough to where if they're going to be in the game, they're going to have to mostly go along with leadership. I did a bill or an amendment on the floor in the last day or so, no budget, no pay. There were actually 6 other Democrats that voted for that. I think maybe 8 in total, but they were in political swing states. They're up for election. That's how political this place is.
Right.
And we've evolved in a way, like I say, both sides are guilty for the abuse of spending beyond our means in this thing we call the federal government that's going to hit a hard landing here sooner rather than later.
Senator, before we let you go, debt ceiling. Politics are going to be played again?
They will be, and in this case, I get asked all the time, why, since we've been part of it, aren't we going to vote for it? We've never had $6 trillion of additional spending that you need to lift or suspend the debt ceiling for done ever in the history of the country. That's why I think we're on solid ground. That'll be a wrestling match. We may get some Republicans at some point if they start horse trading. I think it'll still be mostly their own to do because they got the votes to do it.
He watches the show because he diffused your question right out of the box by saying it was everybody's fault, right? Both sides. Both sides.
I like the senator, and the senator I hope likes
state.
us. And he knows. He knows.
Flyover state, though.
It is not a flyover state. It's a great state.
Flyover state. You don't even think
A
about
rational state.
Thanks,
it. It's a great state. It's right next to Ohio, which makes it even greater.
It is. Things work there. Balanced budget amendments, rainy day funds, the things that work across the country, local, state governments, school boards, especially businesses.
Thanks, Senator.